Ahoy, ahoy, and welcome back to the next episode of ECF Composite Cast Monthly, the monthly podcast which is sponsored and brought to you by ECF Composites, the UK's leading supplier of composite materials, such as, take it away, Martin.
Such as carbon fibre fabrics, Kevlar fabrics, polyester resins, epoxy resins, bonding agents, GRP roofing materials, craft supplies. We've got a massive range of craft supplies. Actually, check that out.
And growing.
We've got mattings and polyurethanes, everything you could want composite wise, and we're always expanding the range as well. So keep checking the website. There might be something new on there. And if you have anything that you use in your project that you buy elsewhere, we try to be a one-stop shop, so let us know. We'll look at getting it in.
A very good point. Before we begin, we'll introduce ourselves as normal. My name is Nick, and I am the Web Media and Business Developer, it says here, for ECF Composites. Ahoy, ahoy! As we
Ahoy,
always
ahoy,
say.
and ahoy, ahoy from me. I'm Martin Robson, and I do all the technical advice. So if you're calling up for technical advice, 9 times out of 10 you'll get me, or if it's carbon fibre, you'll probably get me colleague Lee.
Yes. And what are we covering in the podcast today? Oh, before I always forget, if you got any questions, folks, you can email us at compositescast@gmail.com. So what are we covering today, Martin?
Well, as you may or may not know, Nick, as a company selling a wide range of hazardous materials, myself and a lot of the sales staff, we've been recently doing our selling of regulated hazardous substances training.
Right.
Anybody that doesn't know what that is, from the 1st of October 2023, there were changes introduced to the Poisons Act of 1972, which enforced stricter requirements on companies selling hazardous materials.
Right.
So the Poisons Act regulates the sale of chemicals that can be used for illegal manufacturing of explosives or causing harm to the public. And we have a responsibility to make sure that the people who are buying the materials from us aren't going to be using it to harm anyone else in the wider public.
Yeah.
We don't do a lot of dangerous materials within our hazardous, but we've got acetone and things. And anyway, while we were doing this whole kind of course, and we were talking about different elements of criminal activity that some of the materials can be used for, it started making us think and wonder how much fiberglass has been used for criminal activity. So I started kind of digging around the internet, and I thought, we'll see if we can find a few stories. And one of them, there was a company in Spain that got raided, and they were copying supercars. So they had Toyotas, Fords and Peugeots, and they were putting counterfeit Ferraris and Lamborghini bodies on them. And they were actually, but they weren't selling them as kit cars, because a lot of people do that as kit cars. They'll have a Ford chassis, and they'll put a body kit on it and make it look like a sports car.
Now, you're allowed to do that?
I think you can within reason. I don't think you couldn't sell the parts as Ferrari parts.
Yeah.
But you can kind of give it that sporty look.
And I suppose the closer you get to their exact design is when you're getting into a grey area of copyright.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know the legal side of it. I know years ago somebody told me, as long as your part doesn't fit in their mould, it's fine. But I can't imagine that being true. I mean, you could break it down a scale, or
of course,
slightly larger.
Doubt that.
But I think what these guys were doing, they were actually trying to sell them as Lamborghinis.
Oh my goodness.
And I think they had various other things going on as well, drug smuggling as well involved in that. But yeah, they raided this factory, which was pretty much a sweatshop manufacturing, churning over these Lamborghinis. And it was a garage in Girona, northern Spain. If it looks like a Ferrari and sounds like a diesel, it's going to be a diesel car. I doubt anyone would be duped by any of that, but you never know. You never know on anything goes on in the selling pages on eBay.
Can't be too careful, can you? I wonder how many they sold. Did it say anyway?
No, it didn't actually say. But when they raided the place, and we've got pictures here actually, so if we put this on, because we put our podcast on YouTube as well. I know it's not filmed or anything. It's just the, but on YouTube we'll put some of them pictures up. I've got a couple of them, and you can see one of them. They've got a plug for what looks like I think it's a Porsche, and they've got one complete, and it does look the business, doesn't it?
It looks really nice. I'd drive that. No
Yeah.
bother. Who cares what the chassis is?
Yeah, and you can see a few donor cars where they're kind of taking parts off that they're copying.
So, like, anyone can get hold of a fiberglass part or a bit of car, whatever, take a mould off it. You could just... anybody can do that, can't they? With a bit of knowledge.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you've already got the part, it's most of the work done for you in terms of... making a mould, because usually when you make a mould you have to start off with a plug.
That's the hard part.
And if you've
That's
got nothing there, you've got to have some kind of skill in CNCing or woodwork if you want to make a timber version of what you're going to make. Usually a mixture of timber and body filler and things like that. But you've basically got to build what you want to take a mould off.
Of course.
But if you've already got the part, it is possible to just take a mould straight from that. You might have to add a few kind of trimming flanges or something like that around it. Maybe reinforce it, because if you've got a car body panel that's a bit flimsy, then when you start putting your moulding materials on, that if it's got any movement, then the mould can actually shrink back.
Right.
So you would have to reinforce it with timbers on the back. But other than that, it's the plug making side of it's pretty much done for you if you've got the part to take the mould off. All you need to do is put your release agents on, because it'll usually have a gel coated surface.
It's going to be a good surface.
But it's dead easy to do.
But say these, I guess if it's drugs gangs organising it and stuff, they probably don't find it hard to get access to an actual Lamborghini or whatever, do they? Whereas we would. Because you see, on eBay, it's full of motorbike panels and stuff like that, isn't it? But the price of them, they're not made by Ducati. No. So how do people get away with it?
I've actually seen a few on eBay. There's a guy been on for years. I'm not going to be mentioning names or anything, but you go on eBay and look for bike parts, and there's all these white shells ready to be sprayed.
Right.
And they're usually sold as will fit a Ducati, will fit a BMW, whatever. And I know, sometimes when you buy motorbikes, sometimes the front panels are made up of loads of different ABS panels that kind of clip or riveted together. But for racetrack, I think the requirements are it has to be all one unit.
Oh, right.
To make sure bits aren't flying off in the track. So because they don't sell those, people do have to make their own, depending on the model of the bike.
Right.
And a lot of the time they use, if they're doing lightweight panels out of, say, carbon, it has to have an element of Kevlar in there as well.
Right.
So if they have a crash, the Kevlar, it'll break, but the Kevlar will hold all the bits together. It'll not go flying everywhere.
Right.
So, I mean, we deal with a few people who will have a certain motorbike, and they will take a full mould off the panel. They'll just kind of have it on the bike as it should look, and they'll just fill any little gaps of plasticine, and then take a mould off the whole unit.
Right.
So yeah, it's done quite a lot. So yeah, while I was researching for this, Lee popped into the office, and he reminded us. He was asking us what I was doing. I told him, and he reminded us. He says, "Oh, can you remember that company? There was a company in Yorkshire who copied quite a famous brand of ice cream trucks. I think it was Whitby trucks. I can't remember the name of the company anyway. But there was another company who copied all their panels." And they got taken to court and by Whitby Transport, and they actually won the case against this other company that actually made slight changes, but there wasn't enough of a change. They'd only made really minor changes. They kind of judged that, it was a blatant copy of these ice cream trucks.
I'm quite interested in copyright stuff just because of other projects.
Yeah.
YouTube videos and stuff. But and so I was actually a stakeholder in the government when they changed the copyright law. I was a stakeholder in their consultation about it also. I mean, I've kind of forgotten about it a lot now because it was a while ago. But often in copyright cases, what it comes down to is, is it close enough to the original that you're taking money from them?
Yeah.
Because people might mistake it for that original.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then there's what that's known as fair use, which gives you an exception to copyright, which means for certain reasons like research, you're allowed to copy somebody's stuff, or parody is another one, and various other things. But if a court says, because there's nothing black and white about copyright, it's all just opinion, and if a court says they're losing money because you've made that, and then that's how it's decided.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, because we deal with a local artist, Neil Sims.
Yeah.
And he knows a lot about it as well. He told me, he says, if you ever casting anything that's copyright, you'll usually get a cease and desist notice first.
Yeah.
It's basically them just giving you a chance to stop.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But then if you continue, that's when they'll probably take you to court over it.
I think it's probably advised. People are probably advised to do that.
Yeah, I would.
Because if you just go and sue straight away, then it looks like you're just trying to get money, doesn't it?
I mean, I don't know what happens if they find out you've been doing this already for about 10 years and making a lot of money. I suppose what you said, if they can prove that they've lost money over it.
Yeah, and that's where it's hard.
They probably wouldn't. They'd probably do the cease and desist and still take it to court.
Yeah, like I mean, Disney are well known for it, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like you couldn't copy anything Disney do, and or if it got out on the internet, they'd just be down your throat, wouldn't they? And straight on top of you.
I think there's a certain level of time, so many years, where
copyright runs out.
I think so. Yeah,
yeah there is.
I think if another company doesn't come in and buy the rights, because I think is Laurel and Hardy. I think I don't know if somebody owns the rights to that now.
Copyright expires after a certain amount of time.
Even if it hasn't expired, even when it was under copyright, the amount of Laurel and Hardy figurines and things you could buy on the internet was Laurel and Hardy. I bet none of those had applied for copyright.
No, well, you don't have to apply for copyright. It's automatic. If you make something, you own the copyright to it. If it's something creative and you make it, you automatically own the copyright. The problem is you've later got to prove that you own that you were first to do that.
Yeah.
So, and the other thing, of course, that comes into it is trademark, which is something that you can register.
Yeah, because there's some pretty bad Laurel and Hardy figures out there on the market.
I bet. Mickey Mouse's copyright just ran out.
Yeah.
But only the original Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse copyright just ran out.
Yeah.
So you might start seeing in lower price supermarkets and stuff tons of t-shirts and stuff with that image on. Yeah. You could sell something with that image on and they can't do a thing about it because the copyright's expired. But, and I'm getting off the subject of fiberglass a bit, but like for example with music, you know, that'll run out after whatever it is, 60 years or whatever. But then the music publishing companies or whatever will apply to extend it, and that keeps happening. Otherwise, all the Beatles stuff would be out of copyright.
Yeah. I mean, it does seem like we're getting off subject, but however, I have had people ask me as a technical advisor about copyright.
Right.
But like I would tell anybody, I'm not an expert in law.
No, of course.
It changes regularly, so you have to check that up yourself. We wouldn't know. So even though the Yorkshire company had slightly changed the original Whitby design, it wasn't enough to stop the father and sons being found guilty of copyright infringement. And it probably didn't help matters they had the word Whitby Morrison on the copied panels as well. This was This identical mark was registered as a word-only trademark in 2000 by Whitby Specialist Vehicles for the ice cream vans.
Right. Well, they were stupid putting that on, weren't they?
Exactly, yeah.
So you can't just go copying other people's panels, and slight modifications might not be enough. That's the message, isn't it, to anyone who's copying panels? Yes. Okay, so we didn't do it at the start. Let's do it now. Our Q&A, our regular question and answer segment. The first question, comes on from what we were talking about. Alejandro from Milan wants to know, He says he's taken a mould from a Ferrari front wing. What do I... No, I'm just kidding. He's not. All right. Slightly related. Chris has emailed in with this question. He says, "Good morning. I'm looking for some help and advice with a project. I've got various panels for a kit car that I used to make in the UK, and I'm looking to make updates to them and then make some moulds for manufacturing. Okay, so far, it's a Lotus Elise-sized car. Breaks down into front clam, rear clam, right side panel, left side panel, windscreen panel, plus multiple small panels like rear valance, dash, tunnels, etc. Here's what he needs help with. Number 1, a set of black panels. These panels are black gel coat and they've got various spider cracks, scratches, dings and dents from storage and moving over the last 5 years or so. I think he's talking about... Is he talking about the moulds, do you think?
No, I think it's the actual.
Oh, he's got the panels. He's going to take
so I think he's going
them.
to take them all. So you must want to fix them first.
That's what he's saying. I don't think the fiberglass is damaged, so it would just be a lot of gel coat repair. And he says, is it best to cut and polish all the panels, then gel coat the damaged parts, or is a different finish on the panels better for moulding? What a good question.
Yeah. So there's a couple of ways you can approach this. So if you've got various spider cracks and chips in a gel coat, you can actually use gel coat to repair them. So spider cracks, you would take a Dremel tool or a sharp tool and just V them out.
Whiten them up a bit.
Yeah, mix up a teaspoon of gel coat. I usually say a teaspoon with about 4 droplets of hardener.
Okay.
Depending on temperature. Give that a quick mix, and then just with a pointed tool, just point it into the actual crack. Leave it overnight to cure. It's important that you leave it overnight to cure, because if you start cutting it back as soon as it's cured, the friction's going to generate heat and it could just break up and soften the patch that you just put in. So overnight, so it can get to full hardness. You can take a Stanley blade, because gel coat, when it cures, it's quite tacky, and a lot of people might say, well, use floor coat, but when you're patching a gouge or a hole, if you haven't put enough gel coat in, it sinks back. Floor coat won't bond to floor coat.
Right.
So if you use gel coat, you can put another layer on top without any issue. And that slight tackiness, because you're doing such a small area, you can take a Stanley blade and just scrape it over the surface to kind of level it off, and then finish with wet and dry paper, and that Stanley blade will take the tackiness away. But if you want to do a full whole resurface, you wouldn't resurface it with gel coat, because it's going to be a big area to be sticky, and if you use floor coat, it's terribly difficult to rub down. Right. So what I would do is sand it back, take the gel coat off, so you're removing any kind of cracks if it's really severe. If there's only 1 or 2 little cracks, I would just do the repair like I mentioned before, but if it's covered in them, just sand that gel coat off, and then build it up with Durabuild surface primer. Right. It's a bit like a car body primer. A high build body primer. It's really easy to rub down, and you can bring it to a polished finish as well. I wouldn't use normal car primers, because they tend to melt under the whole moulding process. Right. I've tried it myself before, and it doesn't work. You can put loads of PVA release agent and it'll protect it to a point, but there's always little bits that wrinkle. So stick the Durabuild surface primer. Funnily enough, actually, I found on a website somebody described it as our specialist American primer. This was on a car restoration site. All right, okay. But I knew from reading it was just Durabuild. And the process they use, I think they sand everything right back, and they apply a surface tissue just to stabilise the fiberglass surface before they put the body filler on. So that's
fiberglass or tissue on. With like a resin.
Just a it's known as surface tissue or glass fibre veil is the other description
really
for it.
fine mat, isn't it?
Yeah. It just stabilises the surface of the fiberglass.
And will that then, if you just... So would you put that on with a fiberglass resin?
Oh, yeah. Just the same as if you would,
to then put Durabuild. And is Durabuild a polyester resiny thing as well?
It is, yeah. It's polyester based. Right. It's got tiny little microspheres in it, which makes it easier to sand, just like a high build. Right. And there's 2 ways you can apply it, actually. There's for best results, spray it. So there's a Duratec thinners or Durabuild thinners. You use about 7% of that in the Durabuild through a normal paint sprayer. A very fine coat. Just build layer upon layer until you've got a good thickness of Durabuild. There's no recommended amount of course to put on. You can just kind of judge it.
Right.
Or
Does it need to be a minimum thickness or anything, or it's just when you've got?
I would probably say around about 0.5 mil.
Right. Okay.
Basically, until you're confident there's enough, let's say, meat on there to rub back.
Yeah.
Or the other option is to put it on with a brush, which, if it was a small panel, that's what we would do. We would just go one direction with a brush with the first coat, and then go the opposite direction, so you're not kind of making great big brush lines in it. And then we'd sand it back with 240, get so far down, and then quickly switch to 800 and up to about 12 or 1500 through the grades of wet and dry, and then polish it up. Because for a small part, you'd probably have it coated with a brush quicker than what it took you to set up the gun.
Right.
But for a big pan, like a bonnet, I would say spray it on. You'll get a much nicer finish.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay. But yeah, that's a prep side if you're going to take a mould off it, and then it's just the case of your release agents and your moulding materials after that.
Well, this is what he's coming on to next with his question number 2 from Chris is, once the panels have been repaired, I need to prep them for mould making. This probably won't be started till winter time. There's a red flag for you. But I want to start thinking about the process and the materials needed. They'll probably just be hand-laid fiberglass panel, but I would like the option to do infusion. Can't remember if it calls for different materials in the moulds for either, or they're both the same process. I would add thick enough flanges for bagging material when making the moulds. Okay, so now you've given 2 options for the repair that he's done first, just a gel coat repair, and then the second one with the Durabuild. So I guess do you need to? Is it 2 different processes then for a mould or not?
Well, no, you can actually do one with this one because we do tooling resin systems. Right. So we've got the 14 PA and we've got the 4010 PA tooling resin, and the is it 6? I always get these numbers mixed up. I think it's a 697 PA, which is the vinyl ester for the tie coat. Anyway, it's a full tooling system.
Yeah.
And once you've made a mould from that, you can literally do polyester parts, or you can do carbon fibre parts. If you're doing carbon fibre parts, it's usually a good idea to post-cure the mould at about 40 degrees.
Right.
I think it's for about, it might be 8 hours. I can't remember, but it's on the data sheet. It tells you about the post-curing. And that stabilises it all before you then start putting infused carbon parts in the oven to cure off. Right. So it's important that you stabilise that mould, because if you don't post-cure it, what can happen is if you put your materials in and then vacuum bag it and put it in, and you're putting it in an oven to a certain temperature, it's going to actually cook that product and the mould, and you're going to end up with a carbon print on your part. So post-curing it stabilises the mould before you then start baking stuff in it. But it's a good job you mentioned about the flanges. Yes, if you're going to do vacuum infusion, it's a good idea to have the flanges on there so you can put your sealing tapes and everything on. That's basically it. Just one system does both. If he was just going to do, a few small panels, side wings or something like that, he could just use general purpose resin if he's just doing general fiberglass and work. But if he might be moving on to carbon, I would say use the tooling system. And when it comes to the vacuum infusion side of it, just give us an email and we'll probably pass you on to Lee, who's got a lot of experience in this. And funny you should bring that up, actually. We're in the process of making a mould for a Canadian canoe, which I think Lee's hoping to do some courses on infusion.
Okay.
So yeah, if this guy wants to learn how to do that, keep an eye on the website. I would say probably not that far from having the mould made, but certainly by the time we get into next year, we should have the courses up and ready and advertised. It
does look, from my sort of idiot outsider point of view, that there's a lot to learn in infusion.
There is, yeah. It's a bit of an art to it as well.
Yeah.
So even when you're trained on infusion, and Lee'll mention this as well. I keep saying we should get Lee on here to have a chat about it.
Definitely.
But you'll probably knack the first few up
Right.
before you get a good part.
Okay.
Because not only that as well, the infusion setup changes with different shapes and lengths of parts and working out how much resin. Because even though you can calculate the resin, sometimes it doesn't always work out
Right.
as textbook.
Okay.
And you could end up having dry spots, and you've scrapped that one. This is why carbon fibre is so expensive. The carbon fibre as part, you might think, oh well, it's only a small part, why am I paying that much? But there's all the consumables as well that's
Yeah, of
wasted
course.
to make
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
You got all
yeah,
the vacuum bagging, you can't reuse it. It gets chucked away. So
That's right.
if it's good quality carbon part, they will be expensive.
Ah, right.
But carbon fibre itself, it's come down a lot in price.
Yeah, it's just because it's becoming more popular, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Because the less the weaver product, the more expensive it is. But now the weave more, especially 200 gram carbon, gets used quite a lot. So
I remember going to Withley again, going to visit one of the suppliers. I can't remember, in part of the old one of the old cotton mill towns of the north that have often now been repurposed into carbon fibre production plants.
it wasn't Eric's place, Eric Carr, was it?
Yes, Carr.
That's who we should get on. We should
Yeah,
ask
that'd
him
be
to come on,
interesting. But have you been there?
I haven't been there, no.
it's
But as soon as you
incredible.
mentioned the old
These
mills, I knew it was going
massive
to be Eric.
looms with just thousands of reels of carbon single fibres going in and to a huge machine and being woven into these very attractive things that we flog.
Yeah.
What do you think about taking a short break here, Martin?
Yeah, I think we will, yes. Short
I'm gonna
break,
get,
because we've still got a lot to talk about.
I'm going to grab a coffee and we'll just have this word from our sponsor.
For composite supplies, come to the UK's favourite supplier. With thousands of products in stock for fast delivery and free technical help, find us at ecfiberglass.co.uk or just search for East Coast Fiberglass.
Right, shut.
That resounding slam means that we're back in the room.
Keep the ghosties out.
And here's another crime story that Martin dug up, and it was about police season 3 underwater drones. I haven't read this one before, so presumably they've made of fiberglass, and these drones were built to smuggle drugs across the sea. So they're unmanned little submarine submersibles, and were capable of carrying up to 200 kilos of cargo. And the Spanish police have arrested 8 people in Cadiz, Malaga and Barcelona for over a 14-month investigation. And the police say it means they've broken up a gang suspected of building the vehicles and supplying them to drug suppliers across Europe, to drug smugglers. So that's an illicit company building auto submarines to sell to drug smugglers. So we've got some pictures of the drones, and they are made from fiberglass. They're not very
Basic, aren't they?
They are very basic. We'll put the picture.
They're not the most aerodynamic. Yeah, because I mentioned we might put them on YouTube, but you just reminded us we can't put them on YouTube, can we?
I don't think so. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. But in the meantime, we'll put the pictures on our blog, because the podcast goes there as well.
Yeah. So we've got a blog on the on our website as well.
Yeah, it's just on the website there.
So is it under information? How do they find it?
I think it just says blog. I can't have a look at all. It'll be in the menu.
Yeah, but if you go on the website, I'm sure you'll find it. But we'll put all this.
Yeah, it's not too hard.
information
We
on
normally
there.
put them up on Facebook as well when we have a new one out.
We'll put the source links on as well, so they can read the full stories.
There must have been, even though they don't look very good, these submersibles, they're quite sophisticated, aren't they?
They must have done the job, yeah.
They had GPS, and so you just set them off and tell them where you want to go.
Yeah, definitely bringing drug smuggling into the
The 21st century.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it?
Oh, who's coming through the door? Is that Gary? Is he coming in?
Somebody at the door.
Are you coming
Come
in,
on
Gary?
Take a seat.
Ahoy, ahoy.
Ahoy, ahoy. There's another one here, Martin. Do you want to tell them about this other submarine? Listen to this, Gary.
Yeah, so again, back in Spain, it's always happening in Spain, but
What is it with Spain?
yeah, so they seized this massive submarine all built out of fiberglass. Show Gary the picture. See that thing? So these drug smugglers again, massive submarine. And it reminds me of another story that actually, I think they made a series out of it, which is, it's not on Netflix yet, but I'm sure it'll reach the UK soon. But there was a story about a group of smugglers that were supposed to resurface in Spain in this submarine that they made.
All right.
There was 3 crew. Obviously, they had to go on the toilet in there as well.
Nice.
So you had all that smell. But they were supposed to surface, but the police were waiting for them, so they couldn't come up. So they spent a month in this submarine, this tight space, kind of going back and forwards trying to be rescued.
Is that the one in the picture?
That's the one in the picture, yeah. It's actually
It's pretty big.
it's at the National Police Academy Museum in Spain. But it just goes to show, I mean, on a DIY aspect, I mean, these guys have made a massive submarine. You wouldn't dream of it, would you?
Mad, isn't it? But imagine, first of all, imagine you've got a shed big enough to make that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 30, 40 foot long.
Yeah, but if you read into the story, the first guy that got asked to do it refused. He says it was a suicide mission.
But, you know, if you're building something like that, you're buying the materials and, you know, sometimes customers ring up, don't they, for a couple of kegs of resin or whatever, and you go, oh, what are you making? Well, they're not going to tell you, are they? It's going to... Oh, I'm making a drug smuggling submarine in my shed.
Well, some people phone us up and they want advice on doing aircraft.
Right.
Building their own planes. And of course we can tell them how to use the materials, and 9 times out of 10 it's going to be epoxy, but we can't tell them the construction of it and, you know, what the specification of a fuselage is going to be for the plane that they're making. So I think sometimes they do expect a little bit too much from us on the tech side of it, but they're to help really on the application side of it rather than construction.
The website design is so professional.
It is. It's very smart, isn't it?
These probably know how to make a rocket.
I wonder who does a website.
No. Anyway, have you got any good crime stories that are related to fiberglass, Gary?
Not really. No.
What about the horse that got in the factory?
Oh, that thing.
It's not really a crime, is
It's not really a crime, but it was
That was about 1998.
Well, he shouldn't have been there.
no,
Should he?
near way.
And when he had a kind of a wire mesh fence at the side, like a green wire mesh fence, and this horse kind of made its way through it, through the back doors, and everybody was just screaming. They think it was a monster coming in the factory, but it was huge. But Bob Johnson, the old, remember Bob?
Yeah, I remember Bob. Yeah,
He was an old pattern maker. He didn't mess about at all. He just grabbed it and kind of marched it out with these, really. So
Some people are just like that, though, aren't they? Not fazed by anything.
it could, you know, everyone else thought it was like a shark or something. The way they were screaming.
yeah. Well, they used to do that when the airlines used to burst. And they used to have the airlines whipping about in the factory.
Oh, did they?
Everyone was
Yeah,
diving with. Bob used to just get in there and just grab this thing, put it under his arm. Because if that thing caught you whipping about, knacks.
Remember that time a cobra got in the factory? Bob just got hold of it and put it out the window, put it on the pile of horses.
That was funny, Bob. I think he forgot more than we ever knew. He's
Right.
a great bloke. So
Yeah, he did his history. Was it McNulty's?
yeah,
Classic old ship worker.
just knew everything about everything.
Yeah. I remember him screaming at me once. I was trying to, you know, when we get the little metal seals on the tins, I was trying to take it off with a screwdriver, and I remember with a hammer trying to get the top off, and he was screaming at us. He says, "One spark and the whole place will go up." And I'd only just started then. I think I was about 19.
Oh no.
He used to walk around with a hammer, and when you were just working quietly away, he used to like crack it on the table and like frighten you out. Yeah,
Because you started as a youngster as well, didn't you?
yeah. 23.
Oh, were you?
Yeah,
Wow.
23 years old.
And what were you making then? And how long have you been here, Mark?
Over 25 years now.
25 years.
27, I think.
So what were you making?
I started
when you
in 89. When I first came in, we were making sunbeds.
Sunbeds, all right.
Yeah, then about a week after that, I was making covers for a company called Bonus Machine Company. They used to make weaving machines in Team Valley. The same weaving machines that now weave carbon fibre and stuff.
Ah.
They got bought out from a company called Vanderweel in Belgium, so everything just went bad with that one.
Right.
And then, we've made everything from ice cream floats to parts for Concorde, US, British, Danish, South African navies, just everything really. So,
We've made some crazy. We've done even sculpts for Stan on the corner as well.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the charity work and.
I should tell everyone about Stan.
If you look up Stan Autos in the South Shields, you'll see a lot of his crazy car designs. I think I don't know how many cars he's got. Must be about 7 or 8, all different themes. And we helped him with the wacky races one. We did the dragon for him.
So I'm sure I saw a Santa Claus car.
Yeah, he's got the Santa Claus. Yeah.
I did a lot of work for Wrightbus as well in Northern Ireland.
Oh, right.
Back in the early noughties. But our biggest manufacturing was the life raft cases for Zavitec, Ocean Safety, maybe a little bit for Zodiac through Ocean Safety, but that was the main bread and butter.
Do an estimate of how many life raft cases this company has produced.
That's how I think in the heyday.
I think there must have been 600 moles alone or more.
Was that?
So do you think?
One person used to do 100 a month. 10 people, 500. Maybe it's up to 1,000 cases a month for years and years and years.
That's a lot, isn't it?
I mean, talk about 20, 30, 40 years. It's funny because my daughter, we went to London once and I seen a ferry. I says, we probably made that. She went, Dad, you're just making it up. I said, I'm not. I said, well, probably did.
It's funny because I tell my daughter the same thing. She'll say, oh, not that again. You tell us every time we go on a ferry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I can't remember. What would you say is the most awkward thing we've ever made in here?
The most awkward. I know the most awkward thing I didn't like was that Marinark housing back in the late 90s. They wanted it. This huge housing was the size of tell me, how big was it? It fitted 400-man life rafts inside it. It was a huge thing. It was like a big garden shed, but it was like 12mm thick, reinforced with all kinds of aluminium bars and fixings. And anyway, we went to pick the patterns up. It was a Christmas Eve at John from Northern Patterns up in Chesley Street. It was peeing down with snow. We're trying to get all the patterns in this Luton van. And there's about 10 of it in the back of the van, sitting on top of the patterns, trying to drag them in, pull them down to South Shields. It was teeming with snow. You can just laugh now.
And they were hard to make as well, were they?
Terrible, yeah, awful to make.
Yeah.
And are they, tell the idiot, are they like a housing that contains this? Like,
yeah, if you just go to Google, just type Marinark housing into Google, it'll show you on the side of the ship and it'll show you deploy 4 life raft cases.
Is that the things where it comes off the back of the ship and just like dives into the water?
Yeah, then you jump down the chute.
Oh, I thought it had the people in it.
I remember, I think when we went to RFD, talking to one of the guys there, and he said that when they first designed it, they had the slides going into the life rafts, and they were just straight down, and it says people were just terrified, so they had to make it more. They had to change the design to more of a corkscrew, so they was slowly kind of slide down it.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it?
People were just frightened to go down it because it was just a sheer drop. Actually, they got a good kind of weekend in Italy off that. I remember when the holes were drilled wrong, and you sent us over to Fincantieri shipyard to get them all re-drilled and relined. That was being weird.
That's a hassle for a start, isn't it? So how big were the dimensions?
Well, the door was 4 metres by 2 metres.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then you've got another few foot either side on the length.
10 guys to lift it.
Yeah.
Probably 2 metres high.
Right, wow.
And then you had the side panels on as well. I can't remember this. Well, the roof was 4.2 metres. And I remember the timbers we used to bond in were 1.8 metres, so it must have been about 4.5 metres, the roof long,
right,
by about 2.5 metres wide.
Yeah. Big panels, aren't they?
Yeah.
We used to load a truck every month with it. It was about, but sometimes it was 2 a fortnight. We used to get them done quite quick. But there used to always be arguments when we loaded the truck. Because there was a certain way you had to put them on. then everybody would be shouting at each other, and like, to take panels off because they put the wrong ones on. And fit. It was like it was kind of like playing Tetris with all these parts I used to put on.
Well, very good. So that was a lovely chat about the crimes that fiberglass has been used for, amongst other things. Don't forget, if you got any questions that you'd like answered by our experts here, we'll have to try and get Lee in if there's any carbon ones.
That's if you can find them.
Yeah. Compositescast@gmail.com. And if you are enjoying our podcast, please...
What's his nickname again?
Wesley.
Wesley.
Or Leisurely.
Leisurely.
Leisurely. He's got a lot of expertise on boats.
He's sailing, yeah. I think the office, they start calling him Popeye. That's just why you call him Popeye, because he says I'm popping off here and popping off there.
Anyway, shall we wrap it up?
Yes.
Thanks everybody for listening. If you like it, please give it a like and share it to like-minded individuals. And we'll catch you again on Composites Cast. Bye from me.
And bye from me. Did we even say how you to each other?
That's at the start.
You don't say oh hoy hoy when you're leaving each other.
Oh well. Bye then.
Bye.